Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Summer Gathercole, and I am the facilitator of today's webinar. This is a 12-part series that's sponsored by Worklife Partnership. It's really focused on innovative work incentive practices. So we are highlighting non-traditional methods of incentivizing employees. Today's webinar is focused on Vail Resorts and the different supports that they offer both on the corporate and the foundation side, with a special focus on their community psychology model. So we are really excited to have them joining us today. Before we jump in and get started, a couple of logistics to share. Everyone who's participating in today's webinar is on mute. If you have questions, please go ahead and post them in the chat box. We will be monitoring the chat box throughout the webinar today and keeping track of all the questions. And once we get to the end of the presentation, we'll go through and do the Q&A, and I'll be asking those questions on your behalf. So please, if you have questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat box. And then at the end of this webinar, we do ask that you complete what is a 30-second survey. One randomly selected participant will receive a $15 gift card to Amazon for completing the survey. So please give us your feedback. We really do want to hear it and hear what we could do better or differently in the future. So today, we are really fortunate to have two absolutely fabulous presenters. David Ganek is the Vice President of Total Awards at Vail Resorts. He's actually been with Vail Resorts since 2010, and that's a time frame in which the company has grown more than 300%. So he's played a critical role in identifying employee reward offerings, and we're excited to have him here today with us. We also have Nikki DeFord, who oversees the Epic Promise Foundation, which grants at least $750,000 a year to employees. She's actually been with Vail Resorts since 1999, so she too has seen some tremendous growth. And they've especially had what I've noticed to be a very busy year. So we are really glad. I just want to thank them for taking the time to join us today. So with that, David and Nikki, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. I'll kick it off here and talk for about 15 minutes or so. I have a bunch of slides, and so a couple of them I'll move through quickly so we can get to the heart of the content I want to discuss today. But I do want to start by just giving a quick overview of our organization. So Vail Resorts, we have over 32,000 employees across the globe, really. About 8,000 of those are year-round ballpark and about 24,000 seasonal, working both winter and summer seasonal jobs. As you can see from the map, we're multi-state and multi-country, and we continue to expand. As Summer mentioned, we've grown about 300% in my time here since around 2010, and expect to continue that growth pattern. The one thing you will not see, and this is our corporate office. So our headquarters is actually in Broomfield, Colorado. We don't show that on the map. We don't, but it is on there, and that is where we're sitting here today. So, all right, sorry about that. I'm clicking too quickly. All right, so just going on, in addition to the mountain properties, we have over 4,500 owned or managed rooms. So we have a hospitality division and over 200 retail and rental locations. So again, there's 31,000 employees at peak. 6,000 was prior to the last couple acquisitions, so we're probably closer to 8, somewhere in that ballpark. And we also have employees that we consider season to season, so we treat them like year-round employees, but they actually work multiple seasonal jobs. So continuing to move through the content here, one thing I think it's important to understand and to be grounded in is the values of your organization. So as you're designing your benefits programs, your rewards programs, what are the core values of the organization, and how do those benefits, how do those perks, how do those rewards align to them? And so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. These are the Vail Resorts values. But as as both myself and Nikki discuss our work today and what the organization is doing, you will see these themes come through, and these values really being sort of the spines, the pillars of what we're working around. So core benefits, not going to spend very much time here at all, but we offer the normal suite of health and welfare benefits that you'd expect from a large employer. I will call out on the employee assistance program. I mentioned the 24 to 26,000 or whatever, where we are now, seasonal employees, and that includes some part-time, some holiday help, and all of those employees, every single employee, no matter how many hours you work for us in a month, year, if you are active, you are eligible for our employee assistance program, and you and your household members are eligible for up to 6 visits per issue per year. And so that is a benefit that we have ensured that we stayed sort of aggressive with and very generous with, because as we'll talk about here through the rest, we do think that is a key piece of support that especially our populations need. All right, so moving along here into unique benefits. So what is unique to us? So we've always thought about our benefits in terms of focusing. Yes, we obviously need the core ones, but how do we customize and how do we leverage what we have to offer to give our employees something different? So ski pass privileges and friends and family discounts is an obvious one as a premier resort operator. Retail discounts and lodging discounts obviously sort of fit with that as well. We have these the ability to offer these at low to no cost, and so we certainly are very generous with those benefits. We also have some transportation discounts, as we have a shuttle service, so we give our employees access to really all the suite of things we offer to our guests. We also offer to our employees at a very discounted rate, if not complimentary. And then we also have strategic alliance partners. So we have certain brands, Helly Hansen and others, who we aligned with, again, to on the guest-facing sides for uniforms and things like that, and that allows our employees to take advantage of discounts as well. And so, again, we have these offerings. How do you leverage them to give your employees the benefit of those alliances? All right, so then taking it down a little bit more specific, what other unique benefits should we be offering? And that's something that we've spent a lot of time over the last, over my time here thinking about. And so we did implement a consumer-driven healthcare plan, an HRA plan, full replacement a few years back. And as we did that, we really thought about every aspect of our plan design and what we're offering and what actually makes sense for our population. So we do have a younger demographic at high altitude, so we focus on a healthy pregnancy program. We offer it, and we offer an incentive in an HRA contribution. At higher altitude, we do see a higher incidence of lower birth weight or premature births, and so again, obvious for us. Our population is outside 12 months a year, so we offer skin cancer screenings covered at 100%, and again, we offer an incentive. We put money in an HRA if people actually complete them. We did see about twice the national average, or the book of business, I should say, for our healthcare administrators' business, incidence of skin cancer when we first looked at this, and we said this is an obvious one for us, and we've had some very powerful stories come out of people catching things early on. And then our population is active, right? So this is, we actually don't offer traditional disease management programs. Every time we look at them, we tend to find that there is no ROI because we have a very much lower incidence of traditional chronic diseases. However, we have high musculoskeletal. Our population is outside on the mountain 100 days a year. They're running triathlons. They're kayaking. They're very active. And so we provide Hinge Health support, which is Hinge Health is basically a tablet that we send out and helps people do physical therapy to support knee and back pain, and we found that to be very effective. So just to give you a sense of how we are trying to customize where we're investing in our healthcare plan to the needs of our population versus sort of a cookie-cutter approach. And then what else? So we said, what are other areas we should be focusing on? And so this slide does show 2 different articles. And the first one on the left is around suicides in ski towns, and that's from National Geographic. And there really isn't a known reason why the Mountain West, especially ski towns, the Mountain West itself has higher incidence of suicide. It does. And then shifting over to the right side, we see a higher incidence of substance abuse and alcohol abuse and mental health issues. And I would say in the substance abuse that you probably could come up with a few theories around the lifestyle in a mountain town where folks are going to vacation and they are there on vacation versus living there, and the challenging dynamics that can present. So in understanding those unique challenges that our population faces, we said, what can we do to help address some of those? And so the approach, just sort of walking through the steps, we had awareness of the issue. So not only from talking to employees and talking to HR and folks out in the mountains, but also personally having lived up in the mountain towns and having seen that lifestyle, we had awareness of the challenges. Then we looked at similar populations and how they are solving it. So we made an interesting connection where an individual I knew was working, and we'll talk about him in here in a second, was working at University of Colorado. And we started to make a connection between our populations who are tend to be younger, maybe leaving home for the first time or just after college, and may not, will not have the normal social connections you'd have if you were living in your hometown. And so we said, how are they solving for it? And so what University of Colorado was doing was at a community psychology model, which was essentially getting their counselors out into the community, having real-time conversations about normal life stressors, and trying to stem off larger issues. So really saying, here's your resources, what are the types of things that are stressing you out, here's some easy tricks for dealing with stress on a daily basis, and how does that help prevent larger issues manifesting. And so after a lot of conversations, we eventually convinced Corey to come on and start to work with us on a contract basis for a couple of years to start doing the same thing, start going to employee dinners, having conversations about how our employees look out for each other, about are they aware of the resources they have, and starting to build from there. And then when we decided to bring them on full-time, a new challenge presented itself, one we hadn't faced yet, which was, okay, we're about to hire somebody really rolling up under HR who we want to be able to have open, candid dialogue with our employees and have it handled differently. So if another HR individual is aware that one of our employees is doing drugs or was drinking at an inappropriate time, there are different requirements than you would have if somebody called a confidential EAP. So we said, can we actually set up Corey as an individual EAP? And so after a while of bouncing through it, we essentially did that. We have ComPsych is our EAP that we contract with, and then we have Corey set up as Dr. Levy set up as an individual EAP so that he has some of those protections. Now, we did put in, a danger to self or others or our guests. Then there are different reporting requirements for him, but we did want to sort of give him the ability to support our employees appropriately without having some of the required or some of the reporting requirements we would expect of our other HR partners or other employees. And then we said, okay, we've got it set up, so how are we actually rolling this program out? And it really was, we were very conscious about being focused and methodical and getting small wins and making sure that we weren't taking on anything too controversial or getting into areas that might create concerns, because we knew this program could be beneficial, and we wanted to make sure that we were proving the benefits before we started addressing some of the probably more challenging, nuanced areas or gray areas that we might in the future. So what is Corey focusing on now, and what is this program focusing now? Ease of access. So we've worked with ComPsych to set up some of the folks on their panel are now basically we basically can contact them directly. So our employees, the preferred providers, our employees, instead of having to call an 800 number, can call their local counselor who's a preferred provider, and they bill ComPsych on the back end. Now, doesn't seem like a big deal, but we said, look, that's just one less barrier for employees to connect with the AP, because now they can actually just call a local number, set it up, and move forward. We have housing. We have about 4,500 beds in Colorado with our employees living in housing. So how do you build a community there? How do you have people looking out for each other there? We have training and education for employees, for managers, for HR, in terms of how to support each other, what to be aware of, how to manage through various types of issues around substance abuse, mental health issues, or other stress. We have direct employee support. So people, as I mentioned, he is an AP, So people can certainly call Corey with questions about how to support them. Well, we also see him doing a lot of quarterbacking. So we will have an employee whose daughter is going through a challenge, or son is going through a challenge, or spouse, or a manager who's one of their employees is going through a challenge, and Corey will help navigate through the healthcare system and help direct them in the right ways and help make sure that they are able to access the care they need at the right time, and they understand how to leverage the resources that are available. And then finally, crisis response. So like any company, we'd have crisis, and then in addition, we also have on-mountain incidents where guests are getting injured, employees are getting injured, and occasionally even fatalities. And so providing support through those types of issues. So then the question always is, okay, so what's the ROI on that? And that's been, we've been lucky enough to have senior support for this program where it was never specifically about, okay, prove to me the ROI. There was very acute awareness from our senior leadership of the need for better support. And again, having spent, especially our GMs and COOs, spending much of their lives in those mountain communities, they see the issues that are coming up daily. And so they were asking for this resource just as much as anyone. And so we have been, again, fortunate enough not to have to pencil out an ROI because the challenge would be, proving that we prevented certain types of incidents is pretty challenging. However, we have significant anecdotal information. So we've heard from the first responders. We've had some situations where we've had multiple significant events happening for the same population, the same group of first responders, and Corey's support has been tremendous, and the tools that he's built for them to leverage during those times has been, we've received significant feedback on that. Same thing with our secondary and tertiary responders. So you can imagine if you're ski patrol, you're in a position where you're expecting to potentially, just like you were if you were an ambulance driver, you'd expect to encounter some traumatic incidents, and you'd have certain support built into that job and expected. But we also have secondary and tertiary responders. So if you're a 25-year-old HR professional who's really stepping into this new role, and all of a sudden you're dealing with a family who's going through a crisis, are you prepared? And are you actually, are we thinking about you in terms of how we support you as you manage through one or multiple of these types of events? And so we've heard a lot of really positive response from them. And then HR managers and employees, just in terms of feedback around the tools we've offered, the access that we're giving them, or the access they have now to these tools, the resources, to the ability to pull in Corey as needed on these incidents or these issues or these questions where they just don't have the expertise. So we've received a tremendous amount of really positive feedback there. And then going back to that first bullet, we've seen a significant increase in EAP utilization, which the way we interpret that is people have better awareness of the tools and are leveraging them better, which is exactly what we wanted. So that's how we look at really the measures and the success of the program. And I would say over time, being someone who believes strongly in metrics and data, I would like to be able to quantify more. But I think for right now, several years into this program, we're pretty comfortable with the measures we have and trying to think about what could it look like as we get more data-driven around this program and as we continue to expand it. So I could talk about this for hours, which I think probably the first time I talked to Summer about this, I did. But I'm going to stop here and turn it over to Nikki, and then obviously there'll be time for questions afterwards.
Great. Thank you, David. So I am kind of on the other side. I work with our employees through what we call the Epic Promise Foundation, which is a piece of our Epic Promise program, which is really how the company lives the do good value. Under Epic Promise falls all of our environmental initiatives, all of our work in the community with nonprofits, and how our employees actually connect in the community through volunteer programs, as well as the foundation, which is what I'm going to spend most of my time on today. But the feedback we've gotten through our employee survey that we do every year is that sustainability, both community and environment, are a top driver for engagement for our employees. So when we thought about how our employees engage with Epic Promise and the Do Good value, it became really important to build something that they could connect with directly, not grants that we give out in the community that they may not understand or are connected to. So in 2016, we launched the Epic Promise Foundation. Since then, and actually I've updated numbers since I did this slide, we're actually at almost $940,000 that we now have given out to employees. So it's been an incredible program. And this year alone, we've given over $500,000 in grants. What we do are really emergency relief grants and scholarships. So this goes right hand in hand with what David was talking about and how we are supporting our employees and the direct impact that they can feel through the programs that we have. So emergency relief grants are really for things that are unplanned. You need to fly home because a loved one has passed away. You have a medical diagnosis that was unplanned, obviously, and we can step in and we do grants of up to $5,000 for employees to help them bridge a gap. Our scholarships are a little bit different. We do follow the IRS rules around that, obviously, and we grant to those employee dependents who are going on and seeking degree programs post-high school, as well as employees that are looking to go back to school in really any type of degree field. And we've awarded about $250,000 in scholarship grants through the Epic Promise Foundation. So it's been incredibly beneficial in just connecting the Epic Promise. The Epic Promise Foundation has really connected what we are about directly with employees. The other piece of that foundation that has been really great to see is that while it's funded by the company commits $500,000 annually. Our CEO made another $1.5 million gift to help fund it. And so funding is not really the issue for the foundation, but it is a way for all employees to feel like they own a piece of it. We really want it to be for employees and by employees. And by creating a fundraising mechanism, and we do that through payroll deduction, actually through David's group, but also through fundraisers at each of the resorts. Employees who put $1 in the hat, so to speak, become donors. And through that, and because we need to keep our 501c3 status as a public charity, we've raised about $250,000 from employees this year alone. And so it has proven to be this amazing thing, in connecting people and helping people in their, greatest times of need. And what we have found is, one, it's relatively young. We're about a year and a half into this. What we have learned so far is that we have had a hard time communicating out the benefit of the foundation. We've done a great job of reaching employees who are on email. But we have struggled getting past, to our frontline employees. So what we have done in response to that is make this something that becomes specific to the resort. So we drive it from the corporate office, that how it gets messaged out and the things that are done to promote it are driven by groups of employees at each of the resorts. And so our messaging looks different in every location. And again, this addresses the issues that are different in each community. So, we learned a lot through the process. And what I'd say is a foundation is not for everybody. And I think different companies have foundations for different reasons. We do our direct giving, our community grants directly from the foundation or from the company, not through the foundation. And you'll find that there are companies who have chosen to build a foundation to do community grants. We found that there's not really a reason to do that. And the foundation is specifically, at Vail Resorts for employees. But again, not for everybody. And there are one, it's challenging to set up a 501c3. So really be clear on why you're wanting to do it. Are you wanting to give grants in the community or are you wanting to help employees? In order to help employees, you do need to have a 501c3 status. You need to be separate from the company, of the employees that you're supporting. You have to have a separate board of directors that can be made up by employees, and committees also that can be made up by employees to really give out the grants and drive it. But the important piece is that it does need to be separate from the company. The IRS rules are complex. We did hire outside help to help us navigate that, which was a huge benefit, but that can be expensive. And so again, being very clear on what your goals are in connecting this to employees. As I just touched on, if you are kind of a decentralized like Vail Resorts, or you have a lot of different locations, it's going to be important to have local voices. We have found that messages that come down from the corporate office tend not to resonate as well as messages that are direct from the resort specifically. So we've identified, as I said, local influencers to really carry the message and figure out ways to make sure that the employees that need the help from the foundation the most actually know about the foundation. We also always own it. We have goals of things we want to do, right? The dollars we want to fundraise, the grants we want to give out, the programs we want to support. But at the end of the day, how we get there or navigate to those goals is driven by employees themselves. And again, different at every location, from the different types of fundraisers to the way they're communicating, to the people that they have involved. We help navigate that. We help them with that, but really let employees own this so that it's not a corporate program. It feels something that they can drive and be a part of. And we've created ways, and this is incredibly important, for all employees to be involved. So even though we're asking for folks to donate, it's not like we're asking them to get out their checkbooks and write a $100 check for us. It's let's create a dodgeball tournament, and this funds, the entry fees will be a fundraiser for the foundation. And for employees who are making, are struggling to get by and are going to the grocery store and deciding between peanut butter and spaghetti sauce on any given day, even $1 can feel like a lot. And so what we've done is create ways for them to even get involved. So are you volunteering for the foundation by telling people about it? Are you nominating a coworker who you've seen needs help? So creating ways so that you take the pressure off of, you want folks to feel proud about it, to get involved, to help drive it. And so creating lots of different ways for employees at all levels to get involved. So that was fast, but just a quick overview of how we, when we sat down and said, how do we connect the do-good value to our employees, the foundation for us was the answer. One, because it is about employees. It's helping them in their times of need and helping them pursue, educational goals. It can be funded, ours is funded in large part by the company. It doesn't need to be. Both, Home Depot actually has a great example of a company that their foundation is largely funded by their employee base, and they actually have an 86% participation rate in their employee foundation. So I think it's been proven to work, but there are some complexities to work through, and really figuring out how to make it resonate with employees is kind of top on that list. So that's kind of what we're doing here, and I'd love to hear any questions that you guys have out there.
Great. Thanks, Nikki, and thanks, David. I think one of the things I am most impressed about and just absolutely love around the philosophy of Vail Resorts is just how focused you all are on making sure that you're building a sense of community at every single level. It's just really phenomenal. So I want to remind participants, if you have questions, go ahead and post them in the chat box. I actually have a question for both of you. And Nikki, I'm going to just start with you because we just heard from you about the foundation side of it. And I'm just curious, if a company's not ready to launch a foundation, or they feel too overwhelmed, because as you're pointing out, there's IRS rules and things that you have to be really thoughtful of. Are there other things that you would suggest companies do to help support their employees that's similar to what you're offering through the foundation?
You know, there are actually companies you can go through that can help facilitate grants to employees. It's actually not legal to write a check to an employee just because they're having a tough time. The IRS frowns upon that, but there are companies that can help folks facilitate it, and not so that people don't have to set up an entirely new foundation. You know, and we didn't start here, right? We started with funding organizations in our communities that did similar things. So emergency relief, nonprofits that provided emergency relief or emergency medical assistance or rent assistance, and we wrote grants to those organizations to then turn around and help our employees. So that is something that we did. And others can do. There are lots of nonprofits that do that type of thing, and that worked for us for a very long time. And we continue to fund those organizations in our community because they're important community organizations. I found that was a good way to go. So I think that's a good place to start, just to see, what is the need? Is this something that would resonate? Something else we did that's a little bit different than funding someone that's going through a hard time is, we operate in small communities. So, do our employees want to connect in those communities, feel like they're a part of those communities? What we found is the answer is yes. And the more that they are connected into the community, the more likely they are to stay, which is a benefit for us. So we created huge volunteer programs in each of our community so that employees could give back in an easy way and sometimes on company time to feel a part of the community that they live in.
Great. Thanks, Nikki. I think that's really helpful for others to hear, again, who might not quite be ready to launch that foundation aspect yet. So thanks for sharing that perspective as well. Mm-hmm. And David, I had a question for you just in that, again, I think one of the things I love about Vail Resorts is kind of all the unique benefits that you referenced during your part of the presentation. And I'm curious, like how you actually came up with all those unique benefits. I mean, was it the HR team sitting in a room throwing ideas up on a whiteboard saying, here's what our employees need? I know that you said part of it is just being aware of what your employees need, but were you also, looking at the survey results from your employees that Nikki referenced earlier? Like, how'd you come up with such a unique benefit package that really meets the needs of your employees?
Yeah, I think we spend a lot of time thinking about the employee value proposition, and that's been it's always been a focus. I think we've even sort of ramped that up in the last couple of years, meaning why do people want to work for our company? And so as we think about that, we think about the lifestyle that people live, and then we think about what do we offer to our guests that we could then leverage for our employees. And so I think that's really been the intersection where we've probably made the most gains, because you can do it with with some motivation and some good communication and a little bit of organization. You can roll out benefits without building new structures, without implementing new vendors, by just leveraging what you already have, and again focusing on that employee value proposition. Why do people work for your company? What do what is the employee base? Now, of course, you have tons of different segments of your business and different types of employees and different interests. But can you look at some common threads of interest? And can you look at some common lifestyle interests? And obviously, around the mountain communities, there's this outdoor focus and this adventure focus and this active population. So then you start to look at, well, what are the benefits that group values? And I'd say some of them have been here sort of from day one. And then some of them, right, we've over the last sort of 5-10 years, we've really focused on, are we leveraging those enough, and are we actually offering enough in terms of what employees are expecting and really valuing from our organization? And so I think some of Nikki's work really plays into that as well, where it's not it's what types of employees are trying to align with our company that offers this outdoor experience, that loves the environment, that loves, that cares about our communities. And so all of the work of the foundation, and if you guys have seen the news, what we announced yesterday was basically a campaign to get to zero environmental impact by 2030. This actually plays into what our employees are expecting and valuing from our organization. And so all of it fits into that, and some of it, again, is more tactical, like a ski pass, versus, aligned more philosophically, such as being able to donate to support employees or being able to be a part of a huge undertaking to try to get to zero impact on the environment.
Got it. That's great. I think that's really helpful. Just trying to think about other companies that might be listening in or participating in the webinar around kind of how they look at their company, and its kind of unique employee base and how they could best serve them, meeting their values. One other question that came up was just if either of your programs have translated into reducing any turnover rate percentages. Have you been able to measure that at all? I know the ROI is hard.
So I'm going to say yes, but I can't prove it yet. So we get we do get employee engagement survey comments. We do get a lot of it's easy to create a story about the company did this or the company that cares about that. But when you have Nikki and team out there building these amazing programs that go right back to employees, when you have us out there rolling out, creating these resources that are just 100% for our employees, it starts to change the message people can tell themselves, right? Again, so like you look at the skew of people who are very engaged with your company, who are sort of neutral and then disengaged, and that exists everywhere. And the narrative around offering these programs has shifted people's belief in what the company cares about. And so, again, not at the point yet where we can start to point to those hard numbers, but we have seen a shift in what that narrative is, and just that yes, we are a publicly traded company, and yes, we are growing, and yes, and we care about our employees, and these are all of the data points that you can point to that impact employees and their neighbors and their communities, and their managers and their employees, and so. The narrative has shifted for a lot of people and in a lot of pockets, and so we believe there's a direct impact on turnover. I at least have not seen us be able to prove it on our end, and Nikki, I don't know if you guys have spent any time on that.
No, we haven't. Again, I think it's around what feedback we're getting through the survey we do every year and anecdotal evidence that we're relying on for Epic Promise.
Great. Well, and I think that totally makes sense. I think you're right. It's hard to measure. It's hard to attribute to the low turnover because there's a lot of different factors that go into it, especially when you all are building that sense of community and really offering some of those unique benefits. So that actually brings us to the end of today's webinar. David and Nikki, like I said, I just want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today and to share the overview of Vail Resorts. I think it will really help people think a little bit differently about, some of the incentives and supports that they can offer to their own employees. And I know you are a growing company and are really busy, so we appreciate you taking the time.
Happy to do it.
Well, good. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. For the participants on the phone, I just want to encourage you to spend 30 seconds to a minute completing our survey to give us some feedback, and one lucky survey respondent will receive a $15 Amazon gift card. And also want to encourage everyone to join the conversation. You can see the link there on the screen. Our next webinar is on August 23rd at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and we're going to be talking with Namaste Solar, and we're going to hear about their transportation subsidies and some other perks that they offer, such as employee-led committees and book clubs. If you visit that link, you can also see recordings of our past webinars, and you can see schedules for upcoming webinars as well. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today, and look forward to talking with you next time.
Thank you.